What's up, everybody? Coach Ben podcast here at Muscle Farm HQ, here with Jim from Jiu-Jitsu Magazine. What are we going to talk about today, Jim?
So we always are looking for ways to improve our jiu-jitsu, whether for competition, on the streets, whatever, because improvement in our jiu-jitsu means we are an improved human being for the most part. So that being said, we're going to talk about the mindset of significantly improving our jiu-jitsu, like walking into an academy, having a certain approach and mindset. Let's talk about that, Coach.
All right. So, the question is about training room mindset and what kind of mindset should you have in your day in and day out training. This is a topic that I don't think it's talked about as much as it should. Everybody wants to know about techniques and the next supplement to take or whatever, who's doing what move. But I think the mindset in your daily training is probably the most important thing for success, really, depending on your goal, right? No matter your goal, actually, right? So generally, I'm just going to give a general couple thoughts on what I think it is, and we can discuss that, and then we can also bring in some examples, and then how we can achieve that. And then finally, what happens if you don't follow this advice? So
sounds fair.
I think, first of all, having fun and getting better should be the mindset of everybody. Doesn't matter if you're a competitor or if you're a hobbyist or if you are just training a couple days a week for fun. You should really be focused on getting better, right? And having fun is important for sure, right? If you're not having fun, even if you're a competitor, if you're having fun, you're gonna probably get better sooner because you're not thinking about it, right? Mm-hmm. You're not thinking about the monotony of training, And just a side note, the best competitors I've ever seen, they have fun doing the monotonous things, the things that nobody wants to do, like drill 100 Toriandos or 100 leg drags, things like that. Secondly, I think that you should focus on learning and not winning in the training room. So when you focus on winning in the training room, what happens? You play your A game, you're stiff, you don't really evolve because you're always doing your best stuff, the stuff that you already know, right? And then lastly, I would say just learn to have a healthy ego, right? People always say, the extreme, right? It's like no ego. I'm going to tell you right now that that's not really possible. Everybody has an ego, especially black belts, especially the higher level you are, especially the more famous competitor you are. You probably have a bigger ego, but at the same time, you need to learn how to control it and have a healthy version of that ego. So, yeah, I mean, do you agree with that, Jim? Everybody has an ego, right?
Yeah, everyone has an ego. I wouldn't necessarily say the black belts have the higher ego. I think they're more adjusted to whatever their ego is and have a more, I would say, we're speaking in generalities here, so let's just say a better understanding of their ego because, we're all human beings at the end of the day, regardless of belt rank. And
it's probably just the black belts are the people that I notice the most. That's probably why.
Because there's so much scrutiny on a black belt, and
all eyes are on the black belt. Are they on the higher belt? So you probably notice it more.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that everybody understands that everyone has an ego,
and it's not all bad. It's not all bad to have the ego. I mean, because the way it gets talked about, check your ego out the door. Yeah, cool, but understand the spirit of that in the context of that saying. Don't have so much. But if you're nailing a move, man, feel good, celebrate it. It's okay.
What really should be said is just have a healthy ego.
There you go.
Right, like there you go. I'm a black belt. You're a black belt. If we are training tonight, for example, and blue belt catches like a funky move on us and we tap or passes our guard, right? I get my guard passed a lot. That's not the time to explode out with anger and just say, well, you're a blue belt and you did this weird toe hold on me and it worked and now I'm going to crush you. That's not healthy. I don't think that's ever good. or if a blue or purple belt passes our guard, and instead of using, technical escapes and trying to be comfortable in a bad position, of course I could, I'm a pretty big guy. I could explode up with a stiff arm and wrestle him to the ground, and I've done that before. So, I'm speaking from experience.
Sure.
Now, what should you do, in that situation, right? So, somebody not as good as you passes your guard, right? This is a great opportunity now to work on your defense, right? You can't always be attacking, right? There's going to come a time where somebody's better than you, and they're going to put you in a compromised position, and you're going to need to know what to do. At least you're going to need to know to be comfortable. And this is where I'm going to give some personal experiences, but I've seen so many times people that they just are mat bullies, training room champions. These people that they're just exceptional in the training room, but maybe they're like a pretty high belt also.
Sure.
But when I pass their guard, it's like their defense past their guard is worse than like blue and white belts. And I have white belts that I will train with tonight, where if I get past their guard, they're monsters. I can't. They have good position. Everything's good. They know how to defend because they spend time defending all the time. Then I have, purple and browns that sometimes they're so accustomed to winning. They're so accustomed to being in positional dominance that when I pass their guard, I can submit them with anything. It doesn't even matter. I can just grab their neck and they won't know what's going on. I'll grab their arm and they'll just submit. And there's two things happening. I think one is they just literally don't know what to do because they've spent so much time winning.
Yeah, they've disconnected from that white belt version of them. Mm-hmm.
Or they never were that way. There's extremely talented people out there.
Yeah, there's that
who they never played defense, ever.
Right.
I have some of these students that I have to talk to. I've had many talks with many of my students about this. Play defense. If you pass my guard, it should only be one layer, right? You're in side control. You have to now get inside position. You have to control my head. You have to, isolate an arm. You have to do all these things. But when I pass their guard, I can do whatever I want. Why? Because they've never spent time defending. They don't let that go.
Right.
So the two things I was going to talk about is one is they just simply don't know because they've never done it. And the two is they know it, but their ego is so big they don't want to spend time in bad positions. So why not just tap real quick and then let me just start attacking again? Because then I can use aggression and get you in a bad spot, and then now I won't have to defend. Right? They just don't want to defend because it hurts them. Right? And I'm speaking from experience. Okay, I've both been this person and have had students be this person and have training partners be this person. Where if I pass their guard, 100% I will submit them. If they pass my guard, I'll put up a good fight, but if I somehow get out and submit them, I can expect 100% hell coming my way. Okay.
Right. They want it back.
This doesn't matter what belt you're. I'm black belt. This happens sometimes. I'm purple. When I was purple belt, I had this happen obviously more often when I was a lower belt.
Sure.
Rolling with higher belts, but so that's that, right? So that's just an example of what I think is toxic training environment. Okay. That is, I just don't see any benefit in that except maybe you make yourself feel a little better, and so, yeah, if you're one of these people who you don't spend enough time in a bad spot, you always are playing your A game, you're always trying to win, it may be holding you back from your real potential, right? Working on your weaknesses. Okay. So, one of the things that kind of brought this up and made me ask a lot of my students, and we're talking about this, was JT Torres was on the Grappling Central podcast. Shout out to Mr. Ryan Ford, great podcast. He was on there and he said, JT said, this is ADCC champion JT Torres. We're not talking about like a training room champion here. This is a guy who is on top of the sport. We're talking about one of the best ever. Said, stop trying to win, and I'm quoting JT, stop trying to win every round. Stop treating training like it's the competition. Okay, and when you do that, you don't evolve. If you do this in your day-to-day training, you're going to eventually become that gym bully that no one wants to roll with, don't have tunnel vision. I'm kind of paraphrasing him. I don't remember the exact words he said, but this is along the lines, right? So the lesson here is you need to fail in training in order to succeed in competition, or even succeed in the long run in your own training. Why? Because that's how progress is made. Failures, right? You don't learn anything from success, right? When you get rewards and successes all the time, why would you change a thing?
It's harder to see your blind spots.
Yeah. Why would I change? I'm winning and I'm seeing all this success. Why would I evolve?
Don't fix what's not broken, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I've had, I think there was a time when I was a brown belt, I was seriously stalled. I couldn't. I knew who I could beat. I knew who I couldn't beat. I would Kimura the shit out of everybody I could beat, and I would lose to everybody I couldn't beat. I knew this already, and that was not good because it was a box I put myself in, an ego box. Okay, and for the longest time, I just refused to work guard retention. I was like, guard, I'm going to come on top and I'm going to smash you. Guard, I'm going to wrestle you to the ground. Guard, you're going to lose in MMA. Those are all coping mechanisms that I was using, and I'm sure people listening have used, and I'm sure people out there are still using to deal with not, just letting somebody get the better of you in training, even if it's planned, right? And then the last thing he said was, or Ryan may have said this, when you're in the training room, you're in the laboratory, right? And what I got from that is, when I think about laboratory, what do you do in the laboratory? You create things.
Experiment.
You experiment. You don't showcase your best inventions in the lab, right, in front of your peers that are also doing experiments.
You discover them and you test your best inventions.
Exactly. You don't showcase, your best thing in the lab and then nobody outside the lab sees it. You showcase your best stuff in a competition. Or if you don't compete, your showcase is really your overall growth throughout your years to black belt and beyond, right? So I just thought that was really important to hear from an ADCC champion. I'm not a competitor, so when I say it, people can be like, you're not competing every day against the best. This is a guy that's competing against the best, right, and winning at the highest level, saying this, right? And if he's saying this, I mean, what more evidence do you need, right? So what do you think about that, Jim?
No, I think it's great, and in fact, it goes back to a conversation I had with our old professor Rodrigo, where we're talking about one of my old students, and the whole idea of one of my students said, this was during a white belt, it's like, hey, if I compete in the blue belt division, because you could always compete up, I don't think you can compete down, right? So a white belt can technically, compete in a blue belt division. But he asked this question, hey, Jim, if I compete in a blue belt division and I win, can I get my blue belt? And it's like...
Wrong attitude.
Well, it was a discussion. It's not like he was really trying to get his blue belt, but he was just like, what if that happened?
Right.
And then I thought it was an interesting topic. I'm like, you know what? That's a good question, because if you're a white belt being blue belts, does that not make you a blue belt, right? So I presented the question to Rodrigo. He says, no. So if you tap me out right now, because I was probably like a purple belt at the time, right? Does that make you a black belt? I was like, yeah, it felt dirty. It's like, no. Yeah. And the overall message is the journey.
Yeah.
The journey. And backing up a little bit, when we're talking about ego, and that's what training is. It is the exploration and the understanding of your ego. And that goes for your skill set too. Understanding your skill set, even if you're naturally talented, like a BJ Penn type, right? It's like the longer you walk this path of, exploration, losing rounds in training, you have a true, better understanding of the envelope of your skill levels and what you're weak at, what you're strong at, what needs development, what, fill in the blank. Like you were saying, it's the experimentation. It's the lab. We're scaling the abacus of skill, of your skill set within the lab. So I don't know. It's a long-winded answer to your question, but hopefully somewhere in there I answered your question. But that's my message is there's just no substitution. There is no fast track to the experience, to the journey of this whole thing called jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a good point there, bringing up Rodrigo saying that if you were to tap him out when you were a purple,
Mm-hmm.
he can't be giving you a black belt, and that's kind of that's a different discussion. But belts to me are like just they're local to the gym that you train at. They're not like a blue belt in here, right? In Los Angeles, California, it might be different from a blue belt in Brazil. Might be different from a blue belt in New York City. It doesn't. You can only measure the belt based on your gym, and I try to just keep it that way.
Sure, and then overall the way I kind of look at it is I look at, put it this way, a belt to me is a rank. That's all it is. It's a rank. It's not even really. It's a rank more than it's some sort of I don't know, proclamation of skill, if that makes sense. Because when you go to the military, some of the criterion for promotion, and jiu-jitsu kind of exercises some of this criteria, is you have time in service, time in rank. Two different things, right? So just because someone's, let's say, a sergeant, he's a sergeant. He's spent his time. He's done the criteria that is required of him to get promoted. I think jiu-jitsu on a certain level is that. Doesn't matter how talented you are per se. You can only go so fast in the ranks. Sure, you have what's called meritorious promotions and stuff like that. Those are the exceptions. Jiu-jitsu ranks function relatively the same way. But just because one person is a sergeant and the other person's a private, that doesn't automatically mean the sergeant is going to be able to beat up the private all the time. It doesn't.
I agree.
You see what I'm saying?
So that's a good tie-in to what we're talking about too. Is the ranks? Let's say you're a brown belt and there's a white belt. You're not an athletic guy, and this white belt comes in, gymnast or something, and he just passes your guard like nothing, right? Your initial thought, in my opinion, is not to think, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. I'm going to now wreck him with secret moves that he's not going to know. And then I'm going to flip him from side control. I'm going to flip him into the side control and hold him down and show him how great I am. The thought in your head should be like, whoa, this guy is amazing. Like what is he doing that is making him so special? And what am I doing that's making it's so easy for him? Maybe it's my deficiency. So I think having accountability is super important, right? Even in everything in life, but in jiu-jitsu, if you have accountability, you blame everything on yourself and not on the other person. I think that's one of the best ways to get better, right? Somebody passed your guard, tapped you out. It's not I had a bad lunch. It's what did I do wrong mechanically, and what did I not look out for? What technical deficiencies did I have, and how can I correct that? Right. Mm-hmm. That's more of what you should be thinking of. It has nothing to do with the other person.
We'll say has very little to do with the other person because it's a dance. It's a dance. You need a partner. You need a dance partner. But yeah, to your point, what you said is very true. That's the mindset, which brings it to the whole topic of this episode: the mindset and training.
Yeah.
And it's in our hashtag. Know your role.
Right.
Know your role. What role did you have in that dance?
Yeah.
What was your what was your side of the story?
Yeah.
And really focusing on that's all you can really control is your side of
your
the story.
Your reaction,
right?
And your how you're gonna proceed.
Right.
Right. So we already talked about kind of the how not to act and how I'm gonna give some examples, mm-hmm. and then I'm gonna try to give some tips as to how you can implement this mindset, because it's not easy.
Right.
It's not easy. So how do you implement this? How do you achieve this in training? Well, there's spectrums of ways to do. It's a spectrum of things you can do, right? So one, are you an instructor? If you're an instructor, you can kind of schedule the training in a way that can kind of take that out of your students and yourself, right? So an example would be, if I'm the best person in the room and I don't want to keep beating everybody, I can maybe set up a Shark Tank, right? So I'm in the center for 20, 30 rounds, right? At that point, you better be pretty good. But I think even my white belts would start beginning to pass my guard, and I might even let them pass my guard just to test my escapes, right? 1 minute Shark Tank, 30 rounds. Stay in the center, all right? Don't leave. You have no choice but to work on your defense at that point, right? You're not going to be fresh when the 30th, person comes in for their minute round with you. You're gonna put some people that you're already kind of rolling relatively even with in there, and you're going to get smashed, and that's one way to just train yourself. Look, I can survive these deep waters. This is, I'm gassed. They're fresh. I'm setting myself up with a disadvantage. So if, I'm not telling anybody to go out there and let people tap them, right? But if you start by putting disadvantages to yourself, right? So these are even like stepping stones to helping your ego, right? So if I'm tired from this Shark Tank, well, I get tapped. It's not that big of a deal. It's not as big of a deal as if I went in fresh and the guy tapped me straight up, right? Mm-hmm. So if you even then, right, you can kind of use your ego and use these somewhat excuses to kind of lessen the blow and train yourself to until it's okay, until you don't mind. Right, so if you're an instructor, you can always schedule the training that way, mm-hmm. right? If you're not an instructor, you can still set up Shark Tanks. Tell your instructor, hey, I want to do a Shark Tank. Is that okay? You ask these things, or just don't sit out any rounds. Stay in there. Do a full body workout and then come to class. Then you're going to be pretty tired, right? So set things in the way to make sure you're not always in there, like it's time for war, and you have your first team coming in,
Right.
So another way to achieve this is to, like we said, just change your mindset, right? Just, you've never let people pass to knee on belly. Today's the day. Open that door up and see how you can escape, right? And when somebody mounts you and you've never been in mount, can't remember the last time you've been in mount, that's not something to be proud of, man. That's like, I can tell you right now that I haven't had somebody take my back in a while. What am I going to do today? People are going to start on my back. Yeah, I need to feel that.
Well, and even to that, one exercise that I love doing, I put myself through this. I encourage, my guys, my more senior guys, to do the same thing. Is even beyond just giving a position, let's say knee on belly or to the back. I offer at least give up the avenue to a inferior position, because that way you get to see what are people doing to earn those positions. What's all the in between, as opposed to starting from knee on belly. We'll use knee on belly. It's like, get someone in your guard, but then just kind of sit back and see what they do after with a pass. Do they like going straight for the mount? Do they like going to side control? How are they passing? And I think, and I also, again, I tell my guys, be a DVR. When you're rolling with each other, be a DVR. See what it feels like and what different styles, body types, all that stuff. So starting from an inferior position is definitely, that's tried and true.
I have an example from what you just gave, and I like to play this game in training sometimes. I like to go for a mounted Ezekiel where I'm in mount. So I learned this move from Alexei Oleinik, who's in the UFC. Mm-hmm. He's Ezekiel choked people like to death from bottom mount or bottom half guard. So what I do is I'll kind of play this game where I'm guiding people to certain positions and I'm looking for this submission, and it doesn't always work. Trust me. There's times where I'm in mount screwed, and then now I have to. You can't. By the way, this Ezekiel from bottom mount. It's a setup move. So half the time when you try to set this move up, it fails, and you're now in mount, right? So now I actually have to escape. I have to do a bunch of things that I know and get comfortable with. So that's just one way to do it, right? Make it a game,
right?
Okay, so I also want to talk kind of about what happens if you don't follow this advice. What happens if you want to just win in training every day and you become the mat bully or the training room champion or the gym hero or whatever you want to call it, right? I can think of many people that have come and gone in my life that were this person. The people that are still in my life that are these people or were these people, I've had talks with, and I don't sugarcoat it. I just tell them, look, you're being a mat bully. You're not evolving. You're doing the same reverse half Kimura to everybody, and you outweigh them by 50 pounds. You need to open up, play bottom. You need to let people do certain things, or else you're never going to beat somebody of your size and strength and skill who has opened up. You just won't. And an example of somebody I used to train with was he's really, really talented guy. Like I would say, without kind of telling people who he is, this person, everybody knows Kynan Dwarch, right? Kynan Duarte. This kid would be even with Kynan when they were purple belts, okay? And I would train with both of them at a place called Brea Jiu-Jitsu. Kynan's mindset is what made him go from purple belt, decent guy, to 80cc champion to black belt world champion. And you know what that mindset was? The healthy ego. I remember rolling with Kynan at Brea, and he just, I was a black belt. He's purple belt, right? Mm-hmm. He could at purple belt, he could easily probably have his way with me. I don't know, but I just remember rolling with him, and it was like the best roll I ever had. He didn't muscle me. He used technique. He's asking me questions about certain things that I was doing. I was like, dude, I'm learning from you. I'm trying to learn from you, and you're trying to learn from me. It was a weird thing because before that I had never seen that before. I always thought, these Brazilians were like always going 100% every single time, and his mindset kind of. I asked his coach, I was like, has he always been like this? And his coach was like, yeah, he's always been like, he's unique. And that's why he's black belt world champion. And this other guy that, I used to train with is brown belt, still a brown belt, hasn't won anything, hasn't done anything of significance. And it's sad because I'll be honest here, I put a lot of things in front of him that I don't even think Kynan had those opportunities, I was like another person that gave support. I'm not sure Kynan had that level of support, but Kynan made it to that level. Why? His mindset. This other kid, he never made it because his mindset was terrible. It was a very selfish mindset. And Kynan was more of a growth mindset. I'm not saying Kynan wasn't selfish. He was probably selfish. He wanted to get better, but he had the right selfish mindset. Right?
Yeah, there are degrees of selfish, right? Yeah. So,
I can be selfish and still my selfishness benefits you.
Yeah, and sometimes, these high-level guys, let's just put it out there. It's like you have to be a certain level of selfish and prioritize your time and your resources because it's not infinite.
What's selfish, actually, is having a healthy ego. Because as you do that, you will get better. That's selfish, right? Now, what if I told you that doing the opposite of what you thought was the right thing is actually going to make you better?
Yeah.
And you believed it and you took action that way. Yeah. Is that selfish? Yes, it is. But it's selfish for
it's a good brand.
It's a good reason. It's not toxic, and it creates, a better training room environment. Right? So again, if you don't follow this advice, you may become that training room champion. The person that beats up everybody in the training room but does not ever evolve as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, as a coach, as a competitor. You're going to be stuck in that same, local regional scene forever. And also, I don't want to say that I've never seen somebody be both a training room champion and a high level, world champion. I have seen that, but those people are, I would say, it was much harder road for them. The people that I've seen have the most success, and this is not just in jiu-jitsu. This is across all. I'm a strength conditioning coach for NHL, UFC athletes. I've seen it across sports. The people that were at the highest levels, they had the most support from their team because they they had the right mindset. They had the growth mindset. They didn't have the, I'm going to win in the training room mindset. It was a different thing. GSP. Ask GSP. Ask Faraz Zahabi how GSP's training was. Another example is Tom Brady, right? There was a story about how Tom Brady paid his practice squad teammates money if they intercepted the ball from him, right? This is a guy who practice squad. I was on a practice squad for a very, very brief amount of time. So I can tell you right now, practice squad members are treated like shit, okay? So what happened was Tom Brady was paying his practice squad teammates money if they intercepted him because he wanted to get better. Now, there was another quarterback. The story was this other quarterback would belittle his practice squad teammates, and he would make fun of them or talk down to them if they got the better of him during training, right? This other quarterback, which I will not name, but you can search online pretty easy, has 0 Super Bowl rings. Tom Brady has, I believe, 6 Super Bowl rings, right? So there's a winning attitude, winning mindset, and then there's the high ego, not much winning mindset, right? And so, anyway, the point of this episode really was to just get across the message that if people at the highest levels are, have that growth mentality, that not no ego, but having a healthy ego and letting their ego kind of help them instead of hinder them, then we as just hobbyists and people who I'm a gym owner and a coach, we have no excuse, right? We have no excuse. What excuse do I have to show up to class tonight? I'm going to teach at 6 tonight. What excuse do I have to show up to training, beat everybody up, play my A game, not get better? And if JT Torres and Tom Brady are doing their best to put every obstacle in their way in order for them to get better, right? So That's it.
Yeah, so the bottom line is always remember, yield to succeed. 1 step back, 2 steps forward, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
and you won't be the guy in the training room where when everybody is picking partners, nobody is going to you, right? You want to be the guy when people are picking partners.
Wants to work
everybody
with you.
wants to work with you.
Yeah.
Why? I have both types of people at my academy. I have people who, when it's time to train, people flock toward that person, and I have people who, when it's time to train, everybody would go. Like it would be like the last kid picked a dodgeball. And you know what? I'm going to be perfectly honest. I was that guy at one point. There was a point when I was a blue belt where people would run away from me because they knew I was here to win, and that was not right. So, healthy ego, people.
Well, there it is. Another good episode. Good advice, I think. And the message is play with your game, learn your game, enjoy the journey. So, thanks, Coach. Appreciate it, and look forward to the next one, man.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep. All right.